All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, it's that time of the week, folks. My weekly picks in the world of the National Football League. I went with the road team on Thursday night as I decided to take the Pittsburgh Steelers over Cleveland Browns, but that was not the case as the Browns were able to hold serve in the AFC North. And depending on how things work out, tomorrow the Browns could be in first place by themselves at the end of play tomorrow. But with that said, we have some great games on tap for tomorrow as well as the Monday night affair. And with that said, here are my picks for week number 3 in this NFL season. Now you're going to have the winless Houston Texans traveling to take on the 1-1 Chicago Bears. And it was a while ago, obviously, for new Texans head coach Lovie Smith, that he was the head coach for the Chicago Bears. No connections to this current Bears team. But one thing we know about Lovey's team is that they are very difficult to get past, meaning they give it everything that they have for every single play. And you look at quarterback Davis Mills, he's been solid, but obviously he's not going to be in the MVP race, but he has been solid so far for the Texans, and he's got to try to find a way to get through this Bears defense. On the flip side, for the Bears, they were not thrilled at how they played on the road on Sunday night versus the Green Bay Packers, and they want to try to find a way to get back on track. And I feel the best way for the Bears to get back on track is to put their young quarterback, Justin Fields, in the best possible situations for him to show off his athleticism and also for him to succeed. I think this is going to be a solid game. Two teams that are really trying to find their footing at this point of the season. And with that said, I am going to take the Bears at home by the score of 24-17. Now, in Nashville, you're going to have the winless Tennessee Titans hosting the winless Las Vegas Raiders. And this is desperate time for two playoff teams from last season, as both are definitely looking to avoid an 0-2 start. Now, for the Raiders, they know that they let one get away from them last week as they blew that two-possession lead late to the Arizona Cardinals. Both of these teams are dealing with injuries coming into this game. No Hunter Renfro for Tennessee, for Las Vegas, excuse me, while Taylor Lewan, the Pro Bowl offensive tackle, was lost for the season for the Titans. That definitely is going to change things for the running game if you are Tennessee. And I think Tennessee, they still live and die by that running game, but at some point, they've got to find a way to get it going and get more cohesiveness on offense. For the Raiders, there is talent there, regardless of Hunter Renfro not being there or not. You still have Derek Carr and you have Devontae Adams at wide receiver. I think utilize them, but then also defensively, guys have to step up and make plays. Now, granted that the Titans offense is not as explosive as the Cardinals offense or the Chargers offense that the Raiders have faced in the last 2 weeks. And I think this unit has to go out there and seize the moment and put Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill in passing situations, which is not working to his strength. I think this is going to be a solid game, rather. Like I said, two teams that are looking to avoid the 0-3 mark, but I'm going to take the Raiders on the road in this one by the score of 27-20. Now, it's the home opener for the Indianapolis Colts as they host the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. And for Indianapolis, you cannot play any worse than they played last week, as they were embarrassed on the road at the hands of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And for Indy, theoretically, these were supposed to be the two games to get them going. You take on the Houston Texans in week 1, you tie them, and then you come back on the road last week against Jacksonville and you get embarrassed. It has not been pretty so far for veteran quarterback Matt Ryan with the Colts. But the bottom line is, regardless of who is the quarterback for the Colts, They have to find a way to run the ball effectively with Jonathan Taylor. Go back to last season. In each win for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor had at least 100 yards on the ground. In every game that they lost, he was held under 100 yards. So the bottom line is this offensive line has got to get going, and they have to get Jonathan Taylor going as well. For the Chiefs, their offense continues to be very fluid, even though there are some interchangeable parts going through that system right now. You still have Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, and you still have Andy Reid calling the shots. For this game right here, I just see the Colts as being a little bit more desperate than the Kansas City Chiefs. Not to say that the Chiefs won't be ready to play. They have the extra rest after playing on Thursday night last week and getting past the Chargers. But nonetheless, I'm going to take Indianapolis at home by the score of 28-27. Now, in South Florida, you're going to have the undefeated Miami Dolphins hosting the undefeated Buffalo Bills. And for Miami, what a comeback last week as they overcame a 21-point deficit on the road to get past the Baltimore Ravens. You look at the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people are expecting the Bills not only to win the AFC East, but also represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Buffalo is dealing with some injuries right now on the defensive side of the ball, and Miami must go out there and find a way to exploit those injuries. You look at the talent that the Dolphins are putting together at the wide receiver position around the young quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and it's basically Tua just gets the ball or needs to get the ball to the likes of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and let their athleticism take over. But on the flip side, you look at quarterback Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills. He's definitely an MVP candidate. I think that the award is his to lose this season, and as he goes, so do the fortunes of the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be a good game, but I see Buffalo pulling away late by the score of 34-23. Now you're going to have the 1-1 Minnesota Vikings hosting the 1-1 Detroit Lions. And for the Vikings, they have to put the bad taste that was last Monday night's loss to the Philadelphia Eagles behind them, as Kirk Cousins played one of the worst games of his pro career. Now, definitely the Vikings offense has to get back on track with Kirk Cousins and wide receiver Justin Jefferson. But I'll tell you like this is the first road game of the year for the Lions. And one thing you can always say about Dan Campbell's team, yeah, he might be a rah-rah guy to some people, but his teams are always going to be up to play. They're going to play with a lot of energy and intensity. And because of that, the Vikings are going to have to pack a lunch to get this game, especially a tough divisional matchup. This is going to be a back and forth, nip and tuck type game, but I'm going to take Minnesota at home by the score of 23-19. Now in Foxborough, it's the home opener for the Patriots as they host the 1-1 Baltimore Ravens. And we've seen periodically in the past where Patriots head coach Bill Belichick has been able to cook up a defense to really slow down and neutralize Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. You look at the interchangeable parts that the Patriots have on their defense. And what Belichick likes to do with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, he likes to confuse him, meaning, you know what, you're not going to know where the pressure is coming from. And that's the thing that you have to do with somebody as talented as Lamar Jackson. You cannot allow him to get into a rhythm back there, both as a passer and as a runner, because if you do, it's going to be a long afternoon. Defensively, Baltimore needs to get back on track because they were on cruise control last week until that second half when Miami got going. And when Miami's offense got going, the Ravens defense never had an answer for them. So now they have to deal with another former Alabama quarterback tomorrow in Mac Jones. I think this game is going to come down to defense, special teams, and who can protect the football better. And I think New England does a better job of that. Thus, I'm going to take them at home with the 24-20 win. Now, at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, you're going to have the 1-1 New York Jets hosting the winless Cincinnati Bengals. And for Cincinnati, they've had some tough wins, heartbreaking losses, excuse me, if you will, to begin their season. Last year, we saw the Bengals get off to that strong start because of their ability to finish, and that has not been the case so far this season. We talk about Joe Burrow and the talent that he has, and that he is at the quarterback position, and of course the talent around him with the likes of Jamar Chase. But like I've said before, and I will continue to say it, as talented as Cincinnati is at the skill positions, it won't amount to anything if you cannot protect Joe Burrow. And you know this Jets defense is definitely going to try to pin their ears back and come after Burrow. And if they can get to him early and keep this crowd in the game, it could be a long afternoon for this Cincinnati offense. Now, for Jets quarterback Joe Flacco, he and this offense, they're definitely flying high following last week's comeback versus the Cleveland Browns, and they definitely want to build off of that. But I just see Cincinnati as being a very desperate team heading into this matchup. That's why I'm going to take the Bengals on the road by the score of 27-17. Now you're going to have the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Landover to take on the 1-1 Washington Commanders. And for Carson Wentz, this is his first game against the team that drafted him. And of course, once upon a time, Carson Wentz appeared to be the future of the Philadelphia Eagles franchise. And following that knee injury, it just never came together. And now he has to go up against this team, but then also this Washington defense has to try to slow down an Eagles offense that is really clicking on all cylinders. I mean, you look at some of the talent that the Eagles have put around their young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and Washington's defense is really going to have their hands full in this one. This I'm going to take Philadelphia on the road in this one by the score of 34-28. Now in Charlotte, you're going to have the winless Carolina Panthers hosting the 1-1 New Orleans Saints. And New Orleans was on the wrong side of a defensive battle last week with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they need to get back on track. And if they can get back on track, obviously they'd be adding to the woes of the Carolina Panthers. Carolina lost a heartbreaker to the Cleveland Browns at home in week number 1. And then they were right there blow for blow with the New York Giants on the road last week, but they could not get it done. You look at this Panthers team, they're a work in progress. I look at this Saints defense going up against Panthers quarterback Baker Mayfield. I think that's going to be the key matchup in this contest. If they can keep Baker in third and long, and if also they can keep Baker in the pocket, I think that's a definite advantage for the Saints defense. I think New Orleans is definitely going to try to run the ball, spread it around to their talented wide receivers, which includes Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. And I think that, along with the fact that the Saints defense will be able to get pressure on Baker Mayfield and force him into at least one turnover, I'm going to take New Orleans on the road in this one by the score of 29-20. Now in Los Angeles, or Inglewood rather, you're going to have the 1-1 Los Angeles Chargers hosting the 1-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. Now the Chargers only come into this game favored by 3 points due to the fact that we don't really know the availability right now for Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. He suffered that rib injury in week number 2 on Thursday night versus Kansas City. And you know, the bottom line is a rib injury is very difficult to play through, especially when you're a quarterback. So let's see the availability for Justin Herbert in this one. That's what I think this game boils down to. But I think the Chargers do find a way to get the win at home, as I'm going to take them by the score of 34-20. Now in the desert, you're going to have the 1-1 Arizona Cardinals hosting the 1-1 Los Angeles Rams. This is the first road game of the season for the Rams. And you look at this team so far, and it kind of feels like they have a Super Bowl hangover. They got embarrassed at home in week number 1 to the Buffalo Bills. They had a big lead last week and almost blew it against the Atlanta Falcons before they were able to step up and make some key plays. I think what the Rams have to realize first and foremost is that last year is over. And on top of that, they have a huge target on their backs, being that they're the Super Bowl champions, because they are the litmus test for each one of their opponents. Now, for Arizona, they are definitely flying high after last week's comeback win on the road versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And now they have to deal with a very talented Rams team that definitely wants to keep the rhythm going after they got their first win of the season. Big matchup, this offensive line for the Cardinals going up against the defensive line for the Rams. And also, what can this Rams front seven do against Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray? We saw him pick apart this Raiders defense last week in the second half as well as overtime. And again, this offensive line for the Cardinals going up against the likes of Aaron Donald, that is going to be the key for this game. But the bottom line is, I don't see this Cardinals defense being able to slow down Matthew Stafford and this Rams offense, especially wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Thus, I'm going to take LA on the road by the score of 31-23. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, it's a battle of the birds as you have the winless Atlanta Falcons taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And the Falcons, they've been so close in each of the last 2 weeks, but they just have been unable to get over the hump. I think they want to try to find a way to get off to a solid start with their offense and also see if their defense can make some plays against this Seahawks team. These are two teams right here that I don't expect a lot of throughout this season, but I think it's going to be a very competitive game. And I will take Atlanta on the road by the score of 24-20. Now, it's a battle of the bays tomorrow afternoon as you're going to have the Green Bay Packers traveling to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when you think about these two teams, you think about the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers for Green Bay, and of course, Tom Brady for Tampa Bay. And you think about Green Bay right now, they need to try to go out there and find a way to take advantage of the injuries and the suspensions that the Bucs have at the wide receiver position. No Chris Godwin more than likely in this game, no Julio Jones, and definitely Mike Evans has been suspended, for his incident with Marshawn Lattimore last week. But you still have Tom Brady at quarterback. And the bottom line is whenever you have Tom Brady, you definitely have more than a puncher's chance. It won't be pretty. I could see both of these teams meeting twice this year, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay at home in this one by the score of 24-23. Tomorrow night, you're going to have the 1-1 San Francisco 49ers traveling to take on the 1-1 Denver Broncos. And for Denver, their offense has not been as good as advertised. And that's, brought out the Boo Birds last week for this team, in spite of the fact that they won at home against the Houston Texans. Now, if you're the sputtering Denver offense, you have to deal with a Niners defense that knows how to get after their opponents. I think San Francisco definitely has a little more pep in their step right now as they have Jimmy Garoppolo back as their starting quarterback following the season-ending injury to Trey Lance. For the 49ers, they definitely want to get back to running the football and dictating things on the line of scrimmage in order to open things up for the likes of Deebo Samuel. On the flip side, I think this pass rush led by Nick Bosa is going to make life tough for Denver quarterback Russell Wilson, especially they know so much about him from his days as a starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that's the difference in this one. Thus, I'm going to take San Francisco on the road by the score of 23-17. And finally, on Monday night, it's an old NFC East rivalry as you're going to have the undefeated New York Football Giants hosting the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. And for the Giants, they're 2-0, but are they for real? This team has been playing very good, mistake-free football for first-year head coach Brian Daboll. That is the key. Defensively, for defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, they know how to get after teams because he loves to dial up the pressure. Now, can this Giants front put enough pressure on Cowboys quarterback Cooper Rush to force him to make some mistakes? We'll have to wait and see. On the flip side, this Giants offense is going to have to deal with Micah Parsons and crew in that front seven. I expect the Cowboys defense to try to go out there and slow down and neutralize Giants running back Saquon Barkley, who has gotten off to a strong start this season, in order to make their quarterback Daniel Jones have to beat them from the pocket with his arm. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works. I think this is going to be a classic chess match between two longtime NFC East rivals. The Giants have been the cardiac kids, if you will, playing it so close in their first 2 weeks, and they've come out on top. But I think they fall short on Monday night to Dallas. So I'm going to take the Cowboys on the road by the score of 20-19. So, folks, those are my picks for week number 3 in the 2022 NFL season. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.